The Met Office is predicting it will get colder and wetter this week, so the chances of people slipping or falling could rise. You're going to get sprains and strains, Xand. But what's the difference between the two?
A lot of people get muddled about that, and in fact, even in my head, they get jumbled up. But we can tidy it up. I mean, look, I walked to work this morning. It's dark. There are leaves everywhere. It's raining, and I'm cold. So your reflexes, your muscles aren't as prepared for a stumble or a trip. And so what we're talking about this morning is twisting an ankle, knocking into things, not broken hips, the sort of more dramatic end of it, but the stuff where you're like, well, now I'm sore. I've had a stumble. What do I do? Strains and sprains. So a strain refers to your muscles, and you tear a muscle, you tear a little bit of a muscle, you can get inflammation, you get a muscle spasm. That can be very uncomfortable. But if you want to know what your muscles look like, think of a piece of steak. They've got a great blood supply. They heal quite well. So a sprain. I'm doing this all morning. Mark's going to keep an eye on it. So a sprain, like if you think of a sprained ankle, that's a tear in a different bit of your body called the ligament. And ligaments are the kind of elastic bands that hold your bones together. Now, if you think of your ankle is not muscular. There are no muscles holding it. The muscles are all up here, few in your feet. But really the ankle's held together by these ligaments, thick elastic bands. And those are strands of tough protein that kind of connect the bones. Now, if you tear a ligament, that's a sprain. And what happens, rather than having, I've got elastic bands here, okay, they're strong because they're all lined up together. What you want as it's healing is scar tissue to form in the right way. So if you get a messy bit of scar tissue, that means the ligament isn't as stretchy and isn't as strong. So a lot of healing a sprain is about stretching that ligament out gently and integrating the scar tissue so that it heals as strong as it can.
Movement is important.
Okay, so how do we start that healing process? How do we treat them? Is it the same for both? Is it different?
Brilliant. So we can think of it all as soft tissue injuries because you don't exactly know what's happened under the skin. But the first sort of 3-4 days of a sprain or a strain are a little bit different. So the normal thing we talk about is rest, ice, compression, and elevation. So rest, if you've injured a bit of your body, give it a bit of a rest. That'll take the swelling down, take down the inflammation, make it less painful. Ice. Now people get very confused about, do I use ice or do I use heat? Do I use a hot pack or a cold pack? We can come on to that. Compression, bit of a compression bandage can help. The best way of getting swelling down is elevation. Get your feet, if you can prop yourself up on a sofa, get your feet above your heart, and that just gets the fluid off, allows the blood to flow in a bit better and reduces pain.
So is that the sprain and strain?
Yeah, because you've both got, your body is reacting to any tear, whether it's a ligament or muscle, with a bit of inflammation, and so the ice will just calm that down, and the rest and the elevation will take away the swelling. Ice versus heat.
Hot and cold then.
Okay, people talk about both. If you go to the high street, they'll sell you a hot pack, they'll sell you a cold pack. It can be very confusing. Your body is a guide, okay? Ice, when something's hot and angry and tender, ice feels good. If ice feels good, use ice. When something's healing and you're feeling a bit stiff, especially on a cold day, heat feels good. So there's evidence for both. Both work. Neither one will completely cure you, but if you hot pack, you tend to use a bit after the injury's occurred, so maybe 4 or 5 days afterwards.
What a lot of people tend to do in that moment is head for a painkiller, pain relief. Is that the way to go? Is that okay?
So there are a lot of confusing articles about this over the last few months and even few years, where the anti-inflammatory painkillers like ibuprofen, there's some evidence that because they stop your body being inflamed, or the inflammation is the way your body's healing. So maybe it interrupts the healing process a bit. It's all very well, but pain makes you grumpy, pain stops you sleeping, pain stops you working. So if you need to take a painkiller, combination of paracetamol and ibuprofen, you can take them safely together, works really well. But again, they won't cure you, so if you can do okay without them, good to avoid pills when you can.